Hey, this is CANDIA RAQUEL, founder of Centro de Poder. Welcome to the Sensual Sessions podcast, the place to sense your fire so you can share your flame. And if you haven't subscribed already to these episodes, go to www.centrodepoder.com and get yourself signed up. So today we have a very special guest. This is Nancy Shapiro. She's a Reiki practitioner, an Akashic records reader, and she's also a medium. Welcome, Nancy. So happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I am very curious about when was a moment in your life where you found out about your sensitivity, like your sensitivity for channeling energy and messages, and maybe even being aware that the other person is in the need of this message or this attention or this energy transmission.
Yeah, so my experience with spirituality began at a very early age. I remember my grandfather would read playing cards for me, and we would sit in his living room, and my grandmother was not a fan, but he had learned it from his mother, who had learned it from her mother in the old country, as they called it. And my grandmother, I think, just was superstitious. She didn't love it, but things that he told me came true, and it's usually always around money. So I was excited to hear about it, and I think that sparked that in me, that I was excited to read my own cards. And I had gotten a little book handed down from my older sister that was talking about how to read cards. So I was always doing it. For my friends, I would like wish them luck and give them, Nancy's force before a test, but it wasn't anything formal, or I wasn't like trying to do it full time. It just was for fun. When I became a teenager, when I was about 16, 17, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And before that, we had kind of gone to palm readers, things like that for fun. But when she got sick, it took a turn for really wanting to know if she was going to get better. And then um, after she passed away, unfortunately, it was, can I connect with her? Can I talk to her again? Because as a 17, 18-year-old starting college, it was
Yeah.
traumatic, to say the least. So throughout the years since that time, I've always visited mediums or had my cards read or my palm read. It's always been for fun, but with the ulterior motive to try and reach her. And I never really thought about me having the ability for myself. And it wasn't until the pandemic happened and I had a lot of time to meditate and to learn different modalities, learn about Reiki. I'd learned a little bit before, but really delve into the Akashic records and find my flow, find my energy, really discover myself and tap into this spirituality, whatever it is that I always seem to have, but kind of pushed off to the side. And I found out that I could do it, that I was really having an effect on myself. When I was doing the Reiki, I'm like, this isn't going to work. But when I put my hands on my head during a migraine, I was a substitute teacher. I'm a substitute teacher at school. And I had an awful migraine. I didn't have my medication with me. I'm like, let me just give this Reiki a try. And I did it, and it worked. And I was like, wow, and I just noticed that it gave a calm over myself. So then I started doing it for other people, and they noticed a difference after a session or during the session. And through practice, it's sounding simple and unusual, but I would give them messages during the Reiki, messages that made them happier, feel better, and gave them positivity and light, and just they left feeling better. And that just made me so happy to be able to provide that for somebody, to let them feel um, more flow and more ease in their lives. And yeah, so that's how it
How it
all
started.
happened,
And you
and
said that
how it started and how it's going.
you felt that you had like this gift, but you pushed it away. Why did you push it aside?
Mhm.
Why was that?
Uh, Uh, I I I don't know. It just was always kind of a hobby, and I honestly didn't think I could do it myself. I thought it was you had to go. With the internet wasn't around. I'm kind of older, and the internet wasn't around. You weren't connected with so many people, and the only spiritual people were the ones who had the neon flashing lights outside of their little place in a city nearby, and it was something you just did for fun with your friends. You went to get your palm thread. It wasn't, or you paid some man who knew somebody who knew somebody. There wasn't the internet to know all about it. So I kind of felt odd about it, maybe, and didn't even think it was a possibility to do it for myself.
Yeah,
And it always, yeah,
and you
people
and people
skeptical.
skeptical. Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
this skepticism becomes almost like a dogma, like a faith. Like you have more faith in the denial of stuff than being really strict on becoming aware of your perception. And that's what I wanted
Mm.
to ask you about. Do you think this sensitivity, like channeling messages and perceiving, is something that is unique to certain people, or it is something that anyone could turn into at a certain level?
I think anybody can do it. I truly do. I think it's like with any skill, you have to practice. And it's whether somebody's willing to put in the time and the energy and the effort into learning the skill. But I mean, people are in tune to it. Your intuition, you might want to call it. You might not want to say I'm talking to spirit, but you're talking. You trust your intuition. You listen to your inner voice. When Even when we were doing Reiki, in the Reiki and recipes that I do in a small group community, not community, but a little community I've formed, and we're infusing Reiki into the food that we're cooking. People are like, what do you mean? How are you infusing Reiki into it? And you're not even in the same kitchen with me. You're like hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away sometimes. And um, but but you always do when you make a meal for someone and you cook it with love and you make soup for them when they're feeling ill. You're infusing it with your love. You're infusing it with your energy. You're sending messages with that soup to the person who needs it. And so it's semantics, whatever you want to call it. But I feel everybody absolutely has that. And through different religions, through different belief systems, it's over time, yeah, all people, as long as they take the time to do it, can connect to
Yeah,
their inner guidance. I
take the time to
Yeah.
develop the skill of tuning into your inner guidance and use it in a practical way, like infusing a soup with your love, with your energy, with your intention. And like you say, that's the message
Mhm.
that you give to someone. Like yeah, it's like the gesture that you make in the way that you handle like a plate of delicious food, or maybe even a hug, or an
Mhm.
embroidered scarf from your grandma that has something in it. And I love what you're saying, because then uh it's practical. It's not like, oh, I have to be super enlightened. It's like, okay, how about if you
Mhm.
just take the time and put the effort into getting to know and develop your perceptive abilities. And in regards to that, I want to ask you about how is the state that you are, like emotionally, physically, to pass Reiki or to channel messages. Like, can you do it if you're anxious or angry, or like it is like this ability is connected to a certain even physical state? Like, does it works better if you're like having a good time?
Um, So I hate saying but I definitely have to be relaxed. I don't like to be doing it when I'm stressed or anxious. But yeah, I'll try and connect if it's before something important that I would need a little help with, to connect to my guides. Or if I'm stressed out, I'll definitely do some Reiki to myself to relax and be calm in the moment. When About a year ago, I was happened to take a job at a different school, and usually when I go into a classroom, since I've learned Reiki, I will do Reiki on the classroom just to bring positivity and calm and clear energy. Even though nobody's stressed out, but you walk into a room, whoever, you walk into a room and you can tell if people in there are happy or sad. It doesn't matter if you know Reiki or connect to spirit or not, you know the mood of a room, and that's the energy of the rooms there. And so anyway, I happened to take a half day job so I could be home with my daughter in the afternoon at the school. It turns out there was a lockdown. There was an active shooter in the school. And so it was horrifying, right? I could hear the helicopters. I could hear the ambulances. I could hear everything. I'm a substitute teacher. I don't know any of the teachers around me. I'm locked in a classroom with all these children. It's frightening to say the least, and we're all terrified. And at that time I used the Reiki to calm myself. So I'd say my anxiety was pretty high at that moment, and yes, I used Reiki to calm myself and bring myself into a calmer space. And we were locked down for hours. Everything turned out okay. The injured boy is now fine from what I know, but for those hours that we were locked down in the room, I was sending Reiki, I was having that Reiki energy around us. And it was a very surreal, calm time in this art. It was an art class by chance. And yeah, it worked in the moment when we were all freaked out. It helped to bring myself calm and the children who were with me in the classroom calm, when it was desperately needed. And then after that time, because we can always learn from one another, I had a friend of mine do Reiki on me as well, and some of her other modalities to help clear different feelings that I was experiencing after that incident. And so you can use it anytime, is the question you asked,
Really? Yeah.
and in that moment of fear, I definitely connected, and it was desperately needed. And the Reiki gives me the calm to be in present and focus on relaxing.
On
That was
relaxing.
all this is for what I found for myself. So
Yeah.
I don't know about other Reiki practitioners, other people, but for me, yes.
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
was a real emergency, desperate situation. And like you being
Mhm.
like in a way responsible, or in a way like being the one that can protect these kids that are in your classroom, and dealing with the uncertainty and
Mhm.
the ambulances and the helicopters, like that is the most challenging situation I believe anyone can imagine, to calm yourself, like
Mhm.
a life or death situation.
Yeah.
And like what you did was like tremendously effective. You put your mask first, took care of your inner
Exactly.
mental state, and then
Mhm.
you were in a position
Mhm.
where you can like irradiate this state. And normally when there's an emergency situation, we get into survival mode, like we either freeze, we want to fight, or
Mhm.
we want to run away. So I'm really
Mhm.
fascinated because you made the switch like at the nervous system level of running in the sympathetic mode of survival, to switching to the parasympathetic mode, when where you actually have the clarity of mind to take more effective decisions in that state of emergency. So we are sold into Reiki. Thank you, Nancy. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was, believe me, I'm one of the people who think Reiki, I was looking for my son who, he was a teenager at the time, but he was having throat issues swallowing, who knows? And I didn't know. So I was grasping for anything to help him. And because he was young, I mean, we were going to get medication, but I wanted something else. I was looking for alternative modes of helping him. And somebody suggested Reiki, and we looked into it. That's when I first had heard about it. And I was like, they don't touch you. That just seems weird. Like, how does it even work? And he wasn't into it. Like, no, I'll just take the medication. That's good for me. But that's what sparked the interest in me. I'm like, well, after reading about it, it sounds really interesting that it could possibly work. And that's when I looked into it. So I understand that there's some hesitation when I'm not even physically in the room sometimes, all the time. I'm only a
Yeah,
virtual practitioner. There are some people who do it in person, but I'm virtual. But I get it. But from my experience, it's helped me. So
yeah,
yeah, if it can help other people and it's, something you can do that's easy to learn, why not? Why
yeah.
not?
And I mean, if it works, like, why not? Like,
Yeah.
why not? And something that is like striking me is like uh, the act of deciding on your mental subtle state up to your physical stance in a limit situation, because uh when you hear like stand by yourself, stand on your 2 feet, speak your mind, uh tell your truth, fight for your dream, whatever, we imagine something like very like outspoken and even aggressive. And like that's
Hmm.
the idea that we have, even on being our own authority and taking ownership of your experience and whatever. And now, like, the mind shift that you're inviting us all to have is how, in a very nuanced and subtle way, you can say no. Like, this situation that can be tremendously detrimental and traumatic to me and to the people around me, it's not what I will
Hmm.
allow. Like, and it's not that you draw a sword and you went out to hunt the danger in the school. No, like, it was like a no, but like
No.
very sincere. Like boundaries. Like, you set a boundary, but like at the at the true core level, that is your state. And I mean, if I am sure that your hormones and your heart rate and the hormones and the heart rate of all your students were like on a clear like boundary mode. Like, no, I am not allowing that, and I am standing in my place, and I am keeping myself safe, but also safe from the aftermath that this traumatic experience could cause. And I am fascinating because it's,
Hmm.
we could even say like it's a more feminine way or whatever, but the truth is that it's it's the true standing for yourself, like the way you care and tend to your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical state. It's not always about um like arguing and screaming and like what we think about boundaries. It's more like it's more real. Like it's a boundary also that you set to yourself. Like, no, I am not gonna get hooked into this awfulness, and I am not gaslighting it, I am not denying it, I am actually engaging with the reality, but not in the actual passive way that would be to get carried away, engaging into a dynamic of aggression, uh, or being the victim of aggression, or being the aggressor of the aggressor, or whatever, but in a very creative and self-source way. Like, yeah, a Reiki way to say no, a Reiki way to say, like, this is my
Yeah.
integrity and I am protecting this integrity that is my state. And I am doing this for myself first. And from this, I I am like the mother hen protecting the little chickens with their wing, protecting your students.
Right. That's how it felt.
And
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I can feel it from the resonance of the story. And I believe that this is key also for enjoying life in every way, like from enjoying your vacations or your weekends or your free time in the afternoon, or like really enjoying to sit and drink a cup of tea, enjoying your sleep, enjoying
Mhm.
your life. It comes from this state, from this, like, peaceful ownership and peaceful but radical authority on how you're standing. And i and i think this is very important, especially for women, that we often don't feel deserving of pleasure because we are trained too much into being like all for the world, or like serving and see and infected with the disease to please, that we leave ourselves and our pleasure to the last. Like, we always wait for the perfect moment to sit and enjoy or to do our thing. Well, in actuality, that's a problem with these kind of boundaries that we're talking about. And yeah, I believe that this view, like, what you're sharing with us through your very very challenging life experiences, is about that, like how to stay centered, but not in a way that I stay centered with my claws, with my sharpened gel acrylic
Right.
claws to myself, but in a very real and practical way. And now with Reiki, but you research about this, uh well, perhaps your grandfather transmitted you, like, this knowing. I was about to say this trusting in the unknown, but more than a trusting, like a blind trust, my feeling is that he shared with you a sense of certainty. And it's not that it's blind faith into the mystery or God or the unknown, but it's a felt sense that you see the cards, and you feel it, and you know it. And with the money things, or you infuse your school friends with Nancy power before the exams, and like the connection with your mom afterlife, and the way that you went through that grieving and at such a vulnerable age, had to do with this way of standing in yourself and in your truth in a very real way. So yeah, I'm fascinating. Nancy, can you share with us a little, I don't know, image exercise? My dog got excited with all the energy going through here. So yeah, like, is there like a little exercise, the sensualist here in the audience can connect with this state of mind? Maybe, I don't know if we all should have certification in Reiki to send Reiki to ourselves, or yeah, like, how can we, like,
I believe we can do like everybody does. I mean, I show it to my students, and it's a combination meditation. It's all similar. It's just pausing, and bringing in the flow, whether you close your eyes, put your hands in front of you and just we always start with our hands in front of our chest like this. I mean, just take a deep breath in. And it's all about intention, focusing your own intention on what you want to accomplish. I always ask my clients before we start a session, like, what is your intention for today? And maybe today is just, I wish to feel more calm and relaxed, and taking a slow, deep breath in, and then a slow, deep breath out. And then breathing in again. And just noticing your air going through your nose and out through your nose. And then you can take your arms up above your head. And then bringing it down deep into the ground and connecting to the earth. And you can do that a few times. And then what I like to do is just put my hands maybe just on my head, like so. And there's different positions. You can look them up online, I'm sure, like over your ears, front and back of my head. And they're just putting your hands, and the energy of your hands on your body can make you feel good in the moment. Placing your hands on your heart, on your stomach. Maybe it's on your throat and your stomach, and taking deep breaths, but just placing your hands over your body. And in Reiki, when we do it, even in person, your hands are not even on the person. So it's just, you can even hold it if you're doing it to a small child or your animal, your pet. You can even do it with your hands just above them, so that it feels safe. But yeah, just the hand placements, and anybody can look them up and try them. You're not attuned to that, and that is something that you're supposed to have done, but anybody can put their hands and it feels better. A hug feels good. Putting your hands on it. As soon as you hurt your elbow, you put your hand on it. It's an automatic reflex. You do it. So you know this, you know what to do. It's just a matter of doing it in the moment when you're feeling stressed or that anxiousness or anxiety. Just taking a moment to breathe and put your hands there and just breathe in and focus and relax. And that's all what Reiki is, the intention of letting the energy flow through your body down, and whatever isn't serving you, imagine it and it disintegrating down into the ground because it's not yours, and letting it go, float away. And then you feel better, and do as much as needed, repeat as necessary. But I believe anybody can do it. And then, as with anything, it's the practice and the repetition and remembering to do it daily.
You said
Whether you're learning how to play the piano or do Reiki, you just have to practice.
Practice the skill. And like you said, like you already know what to do. Just do it. Like just do it. It's a reflect and practice it. Thank you so much, Nancy. I loved this session.
Thank you.
Extremely meaningful and practical. Very practical Reiki, subtle energy.
Wonderful.
And intention, especially intention. So is there a place that we can know more about your work, or where can we book a session with you?
Yeah, my business is called Mystic Energy with Nancy, but it's easy to remember. Me with Nancy is my website, mewithnancy.com. And I'm on Instagram all the time at me.with Nancy, and on Facebook as well. And yeah, I have my art night, Reiki and recipes, and Akashic art evenings, and all are welcome. Yeah, so thank you.
Wonderful. So go check out mewithnancy.com and me.withnancy at Instagram and Facebook. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate it.
Me too. And thank you, Sensualist, for being on this episode of the Sensual Sessions podcast. And if you haven't subscribed already, please go to www.centraldeepoder.com and get yourself signed up. and see you next time. Until then, remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame.